Hey, good afternoon or good morning, depending on your time zone. It's Shawn Casemore with another one of our weekly 10-minute sales multiplier strategies or tips. Can't really get into a strategy too deep in 10 minutes. That said, today is all about how to use AI to generate upsells. Now, you'll recall if you've been following along on these weekly 10-minute live streams, what I'm doing is recapping some of the topics that I cover off in my latest book, The Sales Multiplier Formula: Simple Strategies to Multiply Your Sales 4.68x. And as many have asked, Shawn, where does the 4.68x come from? If that's a question you have, you'll have to read the book to find out. That said, today is all about upsells and really taking a look at how do we come up with upsells. Now, let's start with what is probably obvious to most of you watching this. If you can have the right kind of upsell positioned at the right time, you can increase the value of the sale. Some studies have said 10 to 20%. I've seen even greater. But the challenge comes back to how do we identify what the right upsell is? So some of the steps you might take to identify potential upsell might include talking to existing customers or clients and saying, hey, you've got this option or this thing or this service or this product. What are other features, other options, if you will, that you'd like to see that would be more beneficial to you? So, for example, you might say, hey, you've got the base model. What if we provided you the premium model? Or if you're offering a service, maybe it's, hey, you've got the basic service level. What if we added more interaction, more time, more support? Right. So the obvious answer is to give a next level up. But in reality, upsells should be a series of steps, a sequence of steps that steadily improve upon the benefits and the outcomes that your customer or client receives as a result of making the investment. Okay. So when it comes to upsells, it can be a lot of work in order to try and identify what is the best kind of upsell. And if you think about it, every product or service that you offer should have a series of upsells that match with it. Okay. So, not to get too complex because I don't have a whiteboard to draw on, although maybe that's a good future reference. When you think about it, if you're selling product A or service A, okay, you should have option B and C and maybe even D to go with that. But when it comes to upsells, identifying what B, C, and D might look like, again, takes time. One of the things that I used to do back when I was selling memberships, so we're talking 15, 16 years ago, I was selling memberships, which if you've ever sold memberships, it's very interesting because it's like selling air. You're selling a promise, essentially. But nonetheless, I realized that when I was out there selling memberships, that's all I had to sell. So we'd have the conversation about membership, the value of being a member, all the things you get if you became a member. But then the logical question became, okay, so what is an upsell or a series of upsells I could offer? So I started talking to existing members and potential members to say, what else could we offer here that'd be beneficial to you? Because that helped in several ways. Number one, it gave us a different offering than what our competitors were offering when it came to membership. We did have competing organizations that also offered similar but different memberships. So we wanted to differentiate. So by having upsell options, we could do that. It also offered something in the membership world where you're going back to renew people. It gave us an additional value that we could offer clients if they decided to renew or re-up their membership. But again, to get to that point, it was a lot of conversations, a lot of research, a lot of test and trial, if you will, or trial and error to try and figure out what really works best. Because if done correctly, the series of upsells you offer should actually create more excitement and engagement with your client or customer, meaning they get more excited. And as you've heard me say many times, when you have upsells done correctly, it can differentiate you from your competitor, which is key because they're talking to your prospects as well. And you want to make sure that when you do get that chance to have a conversation, what you're offering them looks different, right? Sets you apart from the competition so that people start saying, that sounds like a better deal for me. It's something I've never heard of, etc. So then, as I mentioned, it can be a lot of work to identify these upsells. You can do it without AI, you can do it without the use of technology, right? But it's a little more difficult. So what I wanted to share with you is a couple tools that you can use if the, let's call it the old school method of trying to identify upsells isn't working for you. Okay, now let me just recap one more time. What are the old school methods? If you're watching this today saying, well, Shawn, the technology you talk about, I don't have, which you could have very easily. But if you don't, or you don't want to go that route, here's what you do: talk to existing customers or clients, talk to prospective customers or clients, ask them, what can we offer you that would provide additional value with this thing that you purchase, or whatever it is? You're selling them insurance, you're selling them financial services, mutual funds, you're selling them a piece of equipment, whatever it is. What else could they put with this that would make this more valuable to them? What else then historically have some customers or clients put with that offering is the next stage, right? So you want to look backwards as far as trends. What has been an upsell in the past? You want to have conversations about future. What could we offer as an upsell? And by doing so, then you create these multiple levels of upsells that you can then put in your proposal, okay, your offer, if you will, to your customer or client. But let's talk about using technology. You may not be aware of this. Now, I know some of you are deep into AI. That's why you're watching this live stream. But you can go on to Chat GPT or Claude. There's many platforms out there that offer a free initial trial or initial service. Some are paid, but even if you do pay, it's not a big investment. And you can just, I like to use voice personally, but you can type in or use your voice to explain, here's what we're selling, or here's what we're offering. Here's what I believe might be of interest to clients as far as future additional benefits and features. And you have to give it a little bit of context. The more, that's the thing about AI, the more detail you can give it, the more specific answers it can provide you. So if you're just going to throw stuff at the wall, you're going to get what you get. But when it comes to AI, at least my experience and my clients' experiences have been, the more detail you can put into a Chat GPT or a Claude as an example, the better the answers, the higher quality the answers are going to be that come from it. Okay. So tell it what you can about what you're selling, maybe what the other offerings might be, and then you simply say, what are some ideas for upsells? You'll be surprised at what will come back. And see, the whole goal here is to minimize the amount of time you have to do maybe some research online. Now, we can get in deeper. So that's the simple level. Simple level is take a platform like ChatGPT. I say that because everybody's aware of that platform. They've done a great job of branding, obviously. Claude, and there's many others. And take a look at those and just speak into it or type into it the kind of offering that you have today to the market. What are you selling? What are some features or additional options you can add to that? And then ask, right? What are some good upsell options for this product? What are some good upsell options for this service? You'll get some ideas back. You'll have to refine it a bit. You may have to tell it a bit more, but nonetheless, it'll continue to refine and give you ideas that my clients have found really spawn great conversations and ultimately offerings that can become those upsells. Now, that's the basic. Let's use a little bit of AI that we're all familiar with, or most of us are familiar with, in order to get some upsell options. But let's go a little bit deeper. Some CRMs today already have this. I think IBM has a CRM that offers this, and some others do as well, where they take a look at the data that you enter into the CRM. So if you're putting all of your customer purchase history in the CRM, for example, what it's able to do, what some of the CRMs are able to do, and the AI within the CRM is able to look at past trends and make recommendations. If you want to see this in action, although it's not through a CRM, it's more through algorithms, go on Amazon. Right? If you're on Amazon, several things happen. Number one, while you're purchasing, it will bring up relevant past purchases and prompt you and say, "Hey, do you also want any of these?" Right? And again, by the word relevant, if you bought a car part, now you're buying soap, it's not necessarily going to show you the car part. It's going to say, here's some other soaps, other face washes that you bought in the past. Not that I buy a lot of face wash, but you get the idea. But you also notice Amazon does a few things here, which is a good lesson. So they prompt you with past purchases. Okay, here's something else you bought in the past when you bought this. They make recommendations. Other people like you also bought these things. And then you may get an email after that reminds you, hey, here's some stuff, right, that you might want to consider based on your recent order. So Amazon does a fantastic job. Now that's built into the algorithms that are Amazon, right? There's AI involved there, obviously. But again, there are more complex solutions. One of the ones I've come across, so Microsoft Azure, or I think it's pronounced, I may pronounce it incorrectly, and my apologies, but Alteryx, Alteryx, is another software that can actually do this kind of data analysis for you and even look beyond your own information and take a look at the competitive landscape and give you lots of insights, not only about the upsell options, but pricing as well. You see, that's another question. When you identify your upsell options, then you start to ask, well, what's a good price for these options? So here's what I wanted to just kind of summarize this because my 10 minutes is up. Ultimately, you should have upsells. We know that there's lots of options and opportunities to increase the revenue per customer, per client, and ultimately improve the retention of those customers or clients. How you develop those upsell options, there's several ways. You can do it the I'll call it the old school way, if you will, right? You may already know, hey, here's some just general upsells that I always include or that I think I should be including just by talking to existing clients or customers, looking at past purchase history, talking to prospective customers or clients. Hey, what else would you like? So that's the old school manual method, still highly effective. And if you're in sales and having conversations every day, it's not hard to include this as a question and right, you can figure it out pretty quickly. But then you can use AI in order to help if you want to go a little bit further. You can use the simple level, the public domain, if you will, something like Claude or ChatGPT, where you can just plug in a little bit of information about the product you're selling, give it a little bit of background, and start to ask the question, what are some good upsell options? Again, the more information, at least I've found, the more information you can provide here, the better answers you're going to receive. Okay. So that's kind of level two, using some AI. And then you can go even deeper, more complex, where if you're using a CRM system that's tracking actual purchase history, if you will, past purchases, you can get CRMs today that have AI software within it or separate software like Microsoft Azure, where they will actually take a look at this and they'll be constantly making recommendations to you. Hey, here's what else you might want to consider as far as a potential purchase for this customer, potential upsell for this customer based on their purchase history. So lots of ways to get there, right? And I've given you all three. The goal, though, is if you haven't tried out AI, this is a good chance to try it. I find there's really two groups of thought in the sales community right now. Well, three essentially, when it comes to using AI. There are those that are all in on AI. I met a gentleman several weeks ago that was running everything through AI. He's running his email scripts, his presentations. I think that's a little far, but it's working for him. So who's going to argue, right? There's those that are not touching AI at all. They want nothing to do with it, and then there's those in the middle. I'm kind of a middle person, a middle ground myself, although I like to test all different areas. And I can tell you from experience and working with clients, using the simple publicly available AI is a great way to test AI if you haven't yet, and really get some ideas for upsell options that you can then test live with your clients or customers. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Another one of my 10-minute sales multiplier weekly tips. I'll be back again next week with another tip. And until then, let's get out there and go sell something. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care.